You are listening to the evening show here on BBC Radio Wales with me, Alan Thompson. I've played that a couple of times on the programme over the last few weeks. It's the excellent new single for the Manic Street Preachers, It's Not War, Just the End of Love. And talking to me on the programme tonight about the new single on the album is the lead singer of the Manic Street Preachers. It's only James Dean Bradfield. Hi, James.
Howdy, Judy.
Are you well?
Sir? Not absolutely. I feel good. I feel chipper, actually. I'm on antibiotics, but I feel good.
Antibiotics?
Yeah, just a humdinger of a Quatermass cold in my head.
You're looking good, though, man.
Oh, thank you.
It's good to see you.
Thank you.
You're on your own tonight. Nicky Wire was going to come in with you, but he's not here.
He's not here, no. It's a division of labour today. A bit sad because, his mum is such a massive fan of the programme, and but I'm sure she hears her son's voice many a time during the course of a week.
Oh, that's right. He told me that as well. That's really sweet of you to say. Nicky Wire's mum likes the evening show. That's good.
Yes.
The single that we just heard there, It's Not War, Just the End of Love. It's a terrific song. I've played that several times. Tell me about the track that we just heard there. There's a sort of pop feel to that, I think, anyway.
Yeah, I mean, kind of like I'd like to think it's got a bit of a classic rock edge to it.
Yeah.
We are, kind of children of the 70s, after all. But no, it's kind of, I think when we were doing this record, we realised it was our 10th album.
Yeah.
And I think we wanted it to be a celebration of what we do best. And I think kind of like, with this, with it being our 10th album, we just wanted to reach as many people as possible. And we just want to kind of feel as if we're lifting people up with the music, because that's the way we felt when we were recording it. And it is going back to the everything must go kind of ethic, where there's quite a lot. Sometimes there's a lot of melodrama in our music, and there can be some melancholia, but somehow gives you some kind of uplift.
Yeah.
And perhaps it's to do with it being our 10th album and we're 41 years old and we just want to feel good about this,
Yeah, I love the guitar playing on that. There was a classic riff at the start.
Don't say it.
Which I've never heard before. There's a hint of kind of, what should we say? I don't know, Don't Fear the Reaper about it, that kind of record. That's all right, though.
I fed you that line.
Yeah, you did. Yeah.
No, it's kind of, there is kind of elements of that to it. I mean, kind of, when I was growing up in the 70s, one of my first loves were Yellow, Electric Light Orchestra, and then it was early Queen and and Thin Lizzy and stuff. And I think that's just, it is a bit of a nostalgic record. We have kind of fed back into that kind of classic rock kind of music with a pop edge. And I think we discovered that we kind of do that well a long time ago with stuff like Design for Life and things, and it just kind of makes you feel good. I mean, sometimes you can eulogize about what you're trying to do, and you can, extrapolate about the theories you're trying to transmit to people. But sometimes you just want to make music that just gets you going.
Yeah, absolutely right. The style of writing that you've got, have you always written in the same way? I mean, do you sit down with the guitar and come up with a riff like you did on the new single, perhaps, and take it from there, or have you altered over the years?
Our MO has usually been kind of like Nicky Richey, would give me lyrics in the past, and myself and Sean would write music to those lyrics. The lyrics would give us the inspiration for the music. Yeah. And a lot of the time it's still the same. But I think we're a bit more collaborative now. We've been in the band for such a long time, and we have such an understanding with each other. And sometimes I'll come into the studio with a vision for a song, and Nick and Sean will completely change the direction of it. Yeah. So it's definitely become more collaborative over the years.
Yeah, the album's coming out in September. It's coming out on the 20th of September. Postcards from a Young Man. This is did you say the 10th studio album?
It's our 10th studio album.
That's a lot of material. So does that process get easier? Does it get harder as you get older, or do you not notice?
I think the actual process of recording the music is just as intense as it ever was. And it was all recorded in Cardiff, and it was all done at home. But still, I was in the studio till 2 o'clock in the morning every night. And that's good, because it means that you still care about it as much, and you're still getting excited enough. I don't understand really the question when people say, oh, you're 41 years old, do you still like doing it as much? I wouldn't be doing it if I didn't enjoy it and I didn't love it. And I still absolutely love being in a band with two people I grew up with. Yeah. I mean, what's bad about that job?
And you've never lost that motivation and that enthusiasm for what you do. That's obvious in the passion in the live performances and the records. I guess being in your position, you said a couple of times you're 41 now, you've been doing this for a long time, perspective changes in life, what keeps that kind of fire burning in you, if you like?
I think it's just the connection we have as people. Nick has known me since I was 5 years old. He knows what I look like when I had national health specs that were 5 times too big for my head, and I had FA Cup ears, which are kind of still there. I look like a really bad version of Joe 90, and kind of like, so he knows all my faults. He knows that, I am an idiot. Sean is my cousin, virtually my brother. He's known me since I was born, and he knows I'm annoying.
Yeah.
And I know things about them. And so kind of think, if you've been friends for that long, before your bandmates, you don't have any ego battles.
Yeah.
You don't have things to discover about each other. There is a kind of unconditional love there. I know it sounds a bit soppy for blokes to say that about each other.
That's cool.
And there's a respect there. And also, as things go along, Nick, brings a whole song into the studio, which is just amazing. And and then the challenge is that kind of like you want to serve his song as much as you possibly can. And hopefully when I do the same, the boys feel the same about my song.
Back in the early 90s, 1990, 91, I used to do a show on Radio Wales and Radio 5 called Rave with Rob Brydon. You'll know Rob Brydon.
Of course, yeah.
In his radio days. One day a little envelope came in and there was a cassette in there and it's scribbled on it, Manic Street Preacher's home demo.
Right.
You sent us a tape, a very early tape recorded in a bedroom. There was a very primitive version of
what year was this?
Motorcycle Emptiness. That must have been about 1989, 90, something like that.
Yeah, because I remember we sent 3 tapes to kind of the BBC Wales back in those days. One had an early version of Motorcycle Emptiness, which was called "Go Motorcycle Emptiness" in brackets "Go Buzz Baby Go."
Yeah.
And there was another song we sent to Radio Wales called "Suicide Alley," which was on a cassette. Blimey heck, that's a bit spooky.
It is.
And thanks for reminding me.
It's still up there. It's in a drawer somewhere. You can have it back.
No, I mean, kind of. I think actually one of those tapes did get played on Radio Wales, and he was like, and this is Suicide Alley by the Maniac Street Preachers, and I was like, oh, they got
the name wrong.
And then somebody came to the door asking about Neil Kinnock because he lived in the same street as me, and he said, "Oh, what do you do, young sir?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm James Bradfield. What do you do? I'm in a band. What are they called? Manic Street Preachers." Read it in the South Wales Argus. James Bradfield, a local from a group called Man Who Eats Peaches.
Oh,
I was like, no, this name isn't going to work.
When you look back on those kids that started out, and it is 20 odd years ago now, could you relate to that? Do you feel different? Do you feel the same? I mean, that 20 years, I guess, has gone by very quickly.
No, because so much has happened. There's been quite a lot of bad things have happened, and a lot of amazing things have happened. So it actually does feel like a history. It doesn't feel like a brief moment to me. But yeah, certain things have changed. Obviously, there's just 3 of us now, which has been covered, extensively.
Yeah.
I think the other main thing that changes is that I think you still have to have the same anger and same passion to drive yourself into making music and being with each other. But I think, whereas when you were young, sometimes that would come out in a very nihilistic, kind of destructive way. And I don't think that has to change. If you're a 41-year-old, you can't pretend to be as nihilistic and as kind of as narcissistic, and you've got to kind of have a more positive message as a result from your concerns or your angers.
Yeah.
And that's what's the main thing. I think sometimes when we put all those things in a song, it comes out in a more positive way now.
Yeah, and do you ever, I mean, it's a cliche question, but I think it's relevant in your case. Did you ever think you'd achieve this kind of level that you've maintained, actually, because you've stayed at that level for a very long time and you've been hugely successful?
When I say yes, please don't think that it comes from arrogance.
No.
That came from delusion. Because when you're young, you think you're indestructible, and before you get a record deal, you storyboard the future in your head.
Yeah.
So you convince yourself that kind of like the future will be as you see it in the storyboard inside your own head. So you are convinced when you're young, but only for purely naive, delusional reasons.
Yeah.
If I look back on it, I'm absolutely shocked, really. I'm absolutely shocked because we did have an underdog status at the start because people didn't used to come across the Severn Bridge to find bands. A&R men didn't come across the bridge in those days.
Welsh bands in the 80s, 70s couldn't get arrested.
The Alarm were doing it for a while, and then when they went off the scene, there was nothing else. And so I'm always kind of aware that was our main obstacle to overcome. And also we were coming from a tiny bit of a cultural vacuum at that point because the valleys were in turmoil. We didn't know what life was politically, industrially, economically, culturally. We were very confused back then. It was a bad time. And so we were raging against that. And when you're asking people to love you while you're just raging at them, it can go the wrong way sometimes.
And the kind of level of, famous guys, obviously. Do you ever get used to that kind of thing? I was driving into work a couple of weeks ago. I saw you crossing the road up in Llandaff.
Yeah.
Several people tooting their horns, going, "There's James Dean Bradfield." And you sort of, you went about your, I thought, there he is. I mean, do you ever get used to that kind of stuff? Or?
No, it's always been an absolute blessing, I think, that we came from Wales because it gave us that underdog status, which really helped us, in truth. It fired us up. And it helped us that we come back to Wales as a home because there's no way that you can ever get way above your station if you come from the valleys, because if you go up there and you act as if you're a different person, then you won't last long, you know.
Keep your feet on the crowd.
Yeah.
The guitar playing on all the Manic stuff, but I mean, I've seen you live a couple of times, and your guitar playing is outstanding. I mean this is a compliment. You're a slightly underrated guitar player. Who were the guitar players that kind of inspired you over the years?
Well, I've always got to say thanks to Nick, because he taught me my first chord in Don Watkins' art class in Oakdale Comprehensive.
What was the chord?
It was D chord with a hammer on. It was the start into a crazy little thing called Love. So I always got to thank Nick for that. But I think, you know, it was really hard getting girlfriends when I was young, and that made me a better guitar player. The specs and the years weren't helping. So most Friday nights I found myself in just playing along to stuff when my mum and dad were out, and I was just copying the records I loved, and I was even just playing along to like theme tunes on the TV.
Really?
And I absolutely just fell in love with the guitar because it kept me company. I just absolutely have a really quaint traditional idea that the guitar is still so expressive, and it really frustrates me when somebody from certain groups say, I finished with the guitar, I moved on to the triangle because I've done everything I can do on the guitar, it's all been done. I'm like, rubbish, there's so much left to do. And you know, guitar solo traditionally has been seen as a really kind of like a over-emotional, kind of like wasteful thing to do, and I still think it's a great thing.
Yeah.
You know? And perhaps that's just me being a bit naive.
No, I played Motorcycle Emptiness recently. The guitar lick on that is genius. Diddle. I could never do that. I'm not a great guitar player, but I mean, no, I couldn't do it.
I just, you know, kind of, it's just kind of, it was the only thing I'd found I could do naturally without somebody really teaching me or telling me what to do, and that was a massive bonus, you know, kind of like, you know, you're in school and you're enjoying it, but you find out you have limitations. And then, you know, I was a kind of good runner when I was young. Yeah. And then I started playing guitar, and I found out that, you know, except for Nick playing me my first chord, nobody had to teach me anything. And it was kind of, guitar became my friend. I'm making it sound sad now.
Well, listen, we're nearly done and dusted. Thanks for coming in. I saw you support Paul McCartney a couple of months ago at Millennium Stadium. What was that like?
Do you know, I mean, kind of, number one, you know, couldn't have turned that down, because if I'd have said to my dad, a Beatle has asked us to support him, and I told him we said no, he would have just go, what, you silly daft. I mean, I have never been more astounded by a musician's performance in my life. I just stood and watched it in awe. Yeah. You know, for 3 hours, 68 years old, played just over 40 songs. Yeah. And, you know, when you watch him play Blackbird, which is such a beautiful act of just purity and simplicity, just him and that guitar, it was just like this moment of symbiosis where it was like this circular motion of him just being at one with the guitar. Yeah. Just absolutely amazing. And then he rips into a song like Helter Skelter, which has a dark history. Yeah. And I never saw the man take a drink of water on stage. He played for 3 hours. It
was incredible. No break. It's amazing. And he's 68. I mean, it's incredible.
I want to know what he's on, because I hold some of it. But I was absolutely... It was awe-inspiring, just absolutely brilliant. I just kind of, sometimes you just look at something and you just say, I could never even reach the heights of that. And you've just got to admit it, and it's very humbling to see.
Did he pop in and say, nice job, boys?
He was really nice. He actually, you know, we went to his dressing room just after our concert, and his dressing room was dressed out like a kind of like a Bedouin tent, but really sweet smelling, and lovely vegetarian snacks everywhere. And he was so sweet to us, and he was lovely. And I said, I started getting really tongue twisted, and I said, I wish I'd brought my copy of Pipes of Peace along with me, because, you know, I wish I'd brought it along with me so you could sign it. And he kind of looked at me as if I was taking the mick, because obviously some people don't hold that album in high esteem, but I loved it when I was young. And it was an awkward moment where he was going, are you taking the mick there, son? Kind of thing. And I was like, oh no, I've just inadvertently kind of insulted Paul McCartney. Didn't mean to.
Well, listen, James, it's great to have you on the programme. There's a big tour coming our way with the new album coming out. You're going all over the place.
Yeah, it's a real traditional kind of like theatre rock and roll tour, you know, because the one thing about being in the band these days is you're completely in control of the live environment. You know, people might download your songs for free, but when you go on the road, you're completely in control. And it's nice to be playing those venues where you know that Ziggy era David Bowie played on, Thin Lizzy played there, The Clash played there, and you're still playing the same venues, and you still feel like you're part of that tradition. So we're playing Newport Centre, and that's a good old rock and roll venue, so it'll be cool.
Yeah, you've never lost that. You're still a music fan apart from anything else, aren't you?
I go to see lots of gigs, and I spend a lot of money on records. I'm propping up the industry.
Okay, well, the album is coming out on the 20th of September. Postcards from a Young Man. The single is fantastic. I will continue to play that because I think it's one of your best records, actually. I really love that. It's It's Not War, Just the End of Love. You love your long titles, you Manic Street Preachers.
Me
I can
do.
never get my tongue around it.
I know, I kind of like, if you remember, this thing from Manic Street Preachers, if you tolerate this, your children will be next off the album. This is my truth, tell me yours. Like, it didn't make it easy for you lot. Sorry about that.
James, it's good to speak to you. Thank you ever so much for joining us. I guess there's a website where people can check out everything that the Manic Street Preachers are up to. How do we do that, James?
I've never switched on a computer in my life. I'm such a Luddite, Alice. Unbelievable.
Just type in Manic Street Preachers and it'll take you there. Good man, James. Nice to talk to you.
Thanks.